Okay, hey guys, welcome back to the Natty scene. I've forgotten what episode we are. I don't actually know. So we're just going to roll with a guess at episode 8 or 9. But we are joined this week by another guest. George is again absent. Today he's getting his haircut. But I must admit it is kind of my fault because I was organising this podcast with Chris or Khifee, some of you may know him. And we scheduled a time, I bailed on the time, and then I rescheduled the time, and this isn't a normal time, I guess, for me and George to record, but it worked for me and Khifee, so we'll rock and roll with it. So, as you can tell, we're joined by Chris, by Khifee. Chris has obviously been a part of Team MBM in the past. Chris has been a very, very successful junior bodybuilder, and arguably one of the strongest people I know, hands down, like natural and assisted, which is fucking mental. So I'm very, very excited to obviously have a little bit of a chat with him. I know you guys as well have got some pretty cool questions, some questions that probably have been asked about a million times, but we'll still ask them again, get the same answer most likely. But nevertheless, so let's start the podcast, obviously, as we always do. I mean, I think a lot of people know you, mate. A lot of people know what you are, what you do. But just give anyone that perhaps doesn't know who you are a little bit of an introduction to Khifee and tell them what you're all about.
Yeah, so obviously, I'm Khifee, I'm Chris, whatever you want to call me. I'm 21, I'm a junior bodybuilder, I compete within like the BMBF and that. And at the same time, I no longer do it, but I used to be a professional wrestler. So I've done that for around, it would be about 4.5, 5 years. I've competed, this will be going on to my 4th season, I believe. So 3 years, obviously, I've competed for. Again, All Natural Federation, my first show that I actually done was a NABA show. But following on from that, it's all been kind of within like the Natural Federations over the UK. I have been out to the Worlds twice as both a teen and a junior. So obviously they were like 2 of the best experiences ever. But that is really it. I used to be a professional wrestler. Capped that off last year, or it would have been the back end of 2019, just basically to kind of let me set more of my time down towards like my bodybuilding goals and things like that. So yeah, that's really it.
Sure. And that makes sense. And I think you've also undersold yourself in the gym department. Obviously, in an introduction, you probably don't want to tell people your lifts, but like, you just took one look at Khifee's profile on Instagram, you'd be pretty blown away by pretty much every single lift that he does, and also made you feel pretty shit about your own lifts. It's just crazy. It's mental, mate. I'm always blown away by everything you're doing, which is fantastic, and it shows. It shows in your physique at such a young age to have the amount of muscle you have, and it's just exactly what I like to see. It's like the proof is in the pudding.
Yeah. That's Benji, sorry, by the way.
So I've got Barney downstairs, so I'm hoping he stays.
Right.
So Khifee's got a little dog. You can, again, if you want to follow Khifee's dog, you can follow Khifee on Instagram, and you'll see him take him out pretty frequently for his steps. So we will pause the podcast for a little bit. Chris is back. All right. So what I wanted to go on to next is sort of a little bit of a background on how you got into the sport. So obviously you were wrestling, you were competitive in that. But what sort of got you hooked into bodybuilding, mate?
It was a case of just like I started training to begin like to become more fitter and stronger for the wrestling and things. And then it was a case of obviously as I've seen more and more results, I wasn't wanting to compete because obviously I never ever thought that I would be able to be competitive in that kind of way. Sure. So it got to a point, I believe it was in 2016, and I thought I'll give myself, I think I was 17 at the time, and I was like, right, I'll give myself another year, or in fact that might have been a lie, it might have been 2015. It came to a point where I was like, I'm going to give myself another year, and then it came to that year, and I was like, no, I'm going to give myself another year. So then that let me still fall in the teen class. Mm-hmm. And then I competed as a teen at 19.
Yeah.
So it was 1 year in the teen class, and then from there it was like, right, once I got through to the Britain and then through to the Worlds again. So it was like from when I got home from the Worlds, it was like, I'm definitely going back in for this. Like, it was just kind of something that clicked throughout that season. Obviously, again, learning loads of stuff about myself as well, and watching like my training progress, obviously throughout my off season, as in like the off season beforehand. So even seeing things change there was just like, I don't know, something just kind of clicked, and that was it. And it's like now it seems to just be a huge, obviously, like it's the kind of what you would say is like lifestyle kind of thing at the end of the day. Like it's just there now. It doesn't feel like, it'll never feel like a chore or anything like that, if you get me, like training wise, food wise, eating, whatever. Obviously contest preps are like a whole lot different, but it's just a thing that's now there, if you get me.
Sure, absolutely. So did you, when you were younger, did you go to a show? Like, did you go and watch a show and before you competed, or when you competed, was that the first show you'd ever been to?
Surprisingly, I done the Scottish BMBF as my, it would have been, it fell, I believe it was either the week before or the week after the NABA.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like my first ever show, and because it was at like the very start of the season that I was going to compete in, I was like, the year before I never went to see any bodybuilding shows. Obviously, like I watched lots of stuff online and things on YouTube and that, but there was nothing that, you know, I went to see, because again, like it was at the very start of the season, so they were like within the first 2 or 3 shows, obviously both between like non-assisted shows and assisted shows and that. So like it was at the very start of the season, so I just kind of went in with it and obviously went with the flow and tried to see what I could do and if I could be competitive in that. So it was good.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, you know, for a lot of people, when they're getting into the sport, the show they compete in is their first show.
Yeah.
For me, it was my first show, because when I originally got into bodybuilding, all I really knew about was that there were natural federations, but I didn't know what the standard was like. I'd never really seen a natural bodybuilder in the flesh. And I'm sure for you, like as well, obviously I know what your future goals are from listening to you talk on other podcasts and things like that and having chats with you. But in terms of when you first went to a natural show, were you like, oh, okay, I'm now definitely game for doing a lot more natural bodybuilding than maybe I thought I would at the start? Because that's kind of how I got into it as well.
Definitely. And like, see where I'm from right now, like obviously my kind of, what you would class as like kind of environment, there's not any I don't know how to explain it, like there's not really any, say for instance, like natural bodybuilders that like are competitive, maybe say year on year off kind of thing, that kind of stuff. That basically, like, there's been a couple of people that I've been able to talk to in that, but at the same time, like if I went further down, say even to like your kind of bigger gyms and stuff like that, where there would be more kind of people in their competitive phase and things like that, so I'd be able to learn a little bit more. But I guess just going through all of that from doing the first natural show, it was like from there that I never ever, obviously one of my first shows was the NABA. I never ever done basically any more kind of shows like that. It was mainly just the BMBF federations and that, so it was like the natural federations.
Yeah, for sure. And when it comes to your off seasons when you were younger, when you were taking those years off before you competed at 19, were they very similar to what you're doing now? Were they sort of
pretty much? I would say probably the year leading up to my first show, because it would have been, I think I would have been training maybe 3 years. I would have been training 3 years before I competed first. So it was a case of like the first maybe like 1-2 years, I was just basically eating whatever I wanted to eat kind of thing. I knew like nothing about nutrition. I basically knew nothing until I started prepping, and then that was kind of when it was like, right, I need to start like becoming a little bit more knowledgeable, knowing about things, knowing a lot more about nutrition, basically, along with like obviously my training as well, because I was still learning loads of new things. But the first, like, I was eating a lot, but at the same time I was still trying to lift as heavy as possible and things like that. So that's how I believe that even in like my teen years, I was still able to come in with like not as much density as now, but like a little bit, because I was still trying to do like as much as possible kind of thing. And like when I was training then, like nothing's changed to when I'm training now. Like there's no different gyms or anything like that. Everything's literally just the exact same. Everything's in the same place. Everything's just, so I guess that's kind of what you could say is like it's the same as right now. So
yeah, for sure. I think that's a nice sort of tangent a little bit into your training, because I think a lot of people are interested in the way you train and how you put together splits and things like that, because it is a little, you know, controversial and different the way you do things, especially with regards to rest and like days off. So since obviously you know when you sort of initially got into training, you would have understood that you could do a certain amount of sessions and still be productive and you still progress and things like that. Has it always been the way for you that you have perhaps better recovery capacity than a lot of people that you talk to and that you know, basically converse amongst in the natural scene? Because like I find a lot of people, especially as they get, you know, to your level of strength or even lower than your level of strength, you know, most people fucking are, and that, you know, the training frequency has to come down because they have to rest to be able to progress more. So how do you think you've been able to basically train with the frequency you do and get as strong as you are?
Like outside of obviously competing, I think it's been down to like all the eating and things like that. So obviously my eating's like, I've never ever had a problem eating. Sure. So I've never felt as if like I've went through a few days where maybe my appetite's been shit, but I've never went through like a phase, obviously touch wood, it doesn't happen, but I've never went through like a full phase where I've got no appetite so I can't eat. So my food's always been like really high. I do always kind of, throughout contest preps, a little bit different. Sometimes my sleep can become very shitty, like even you'll know that, but
yeah,
throughout like my off season, it's as if I sleep like a baby. So like I'm getting a very lot of sleep, and even at that throughout the day, like say for instance I've got like maybe, I don't know, like 2 hours in the day, I'll even, you know, I'll take naps and things like that just to make sure that I'm still getting obviously like a decent bit of rest that I need throughout the day. And it's the exact same, like before the gym I'll make sure I'm obviously getting what I need in. After the gym, it's straight away to get food, you know, like an hour and a half, 2 hours later, it's food. It's always it's like my day obviously revolves around getting food in. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like, that's like what I said. So I don't do anything else. Like, as bad as it sounds, I'm not really the most kind of sociable person. So it's a case of like, I'll train and then I'll do like my PT and that, and then I'll eat. Do you know what I mean? And then it's like kind of, it'll be that over again and that over again and that over again kind of thing. But like, that's the thing, that's what I enjoy to do. So it doesn't feel like, oh shit, I've got to do this now, I've got to do that now, I've got to go back here now. It's like, it just falls into place kind of thing.
Sure. Yeah. And I think, you know, from the outside looking in, obviously, like we know, you know, you nail pretty much every one of your variables. And I think the thing is, you know, for a lot of people, they probably compare themselves to you a lot, especially a lot of youngsters, and they think, oh, okay, you know, I must be able to, you know, train most days and be able to progress. And circumstances, they perhaps aren't able to do that. And, you know, especially when they either start getting pretty strong or they're a newer trainee, they're potentially not going to be able to get away with what you get away with. And I think it is definitely down to, you know, how well structured you are, how consistent you are, and how much of a surplus you're eating in as well, because you do eat in quite a significant surplus. And you're a big fan of, or you're very much against the idea of staying lean or going very slowly and gaining phases and things like that, which, you know, indefinitely I kind of agree with. But nevertheless, I think I've talked to people about this before. I think there's probably something within your nervous system that is slightly more well built towards bodybuilding, and I think that's actually a big genetic trait that good bodybuilders have, is like a very resilient nervous system. So like a lot of people will be beaten up after 3 days of training in a row, and then you could go on another 3, 4, 5 days and still progress, still recover. But nevertheless, the point still stands that if you want to improve your recovery and you want to take your physique to the next level, then it really is going to be down to, like you said, the food, the sleep. So there's nothing you can really do to tap into to basically change or alter your nervous system. You're basically built with one. You have one. It's genetically influenced to a degree. But nevertheless, I think moving on to sort of like a little bit on your nutrition. So I know that you obviously like eat a lot and you eat in a huge surplus. When you're in the post-show window, do you have any sort of like ways in which you personally like to exit a show, or is your goal straight away post-show just to gain quite a significant amount of weight and get back to being strong in the gym, or what's your goal?
It's like, I don't even know. It's like I don't look at it as, right, I need to put on a certain amount of weight. I would never have like a weight goal. I've never had a weight goal, so obviously I can't say I'm not going to have a weight goal the next time I compete. But like the past competitions, my goal's always been just to get the calories back in, like ASAP. And I don't even mean like, even last season, the goal was never to straight away go out and like binge straight away. You know what I mean? Obviously, like I finished my season out in Miami, so it was a little bit different. The food was really nice and things, but when I got home, it wasn't as if, right, I need to eat this that I've been craving, I need to eat that I've been craving, I need to, you know what I mean? It was just a case of, right, get the calories back in as soon as possible. And it was like when I came home from America, I was out and the show was on the Saturday and I wasn't back home till like the Wednesday or Thursday. Okay. Now, with the food that I ate over there, like I would have thought that, you know what I mean, things would have been a little bit different. I would have came home and I'd like put on a lot of weight, but I got home, it was a little bit different. I'd never put on that much weight. So that was, again, in my mind, it was like, right, it's time to, obviously, I do need to put on now. But at the end of the day, as I said, it was a case of get calories in as soon as possible. And then I went straight into a surplus. I never went straight into like what I'm eating now, but it took maybe, I think, a couple of weeks post when I got home from America, and then 2 or 3 weeks later, then my calories were straight up. And progressing the gym did, like, to where it's sitting at now, because it's at like an all-time high right now. It took maybe, again, 2 to 3 weeks before I started noticing, like, obviously I was noticing like way more energy, way more extra reps and that, like, but now, where it's at now, I think, it was like definitely a good 2 to 3 weeks, maybe even 4 weeks. And then it was like adding on way more reps, adding on, like, you know what I mean? There was extra biscuits getting added onto the bar, like without thought. It was just going.
Yeah.
So it was like, and it was, again, it wasn't as if I was like, it wasn't as if, like, I'm like a firm believer in not losing anything during like a contest prep. So that was the case. I never lost anything, but as my strength is like at an all-time high now, I'm now like pushing weights and pulling weights that I wasn't at that time. So at that time, that was like kind of my strength area kind of thing. So when I left my off-season, the weights that I was lifting at the end of my off-season, I was still lifting pretty much at the end of my contest prep.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like until it came to, like, say for instance, depletion days and that, where I was like just fucking death, then maybe them kind of days were a little bit different. But obviously that was just on the last week of like leading up to the show. But I think it took like 2 to 3 weeks to notice a lot bigger, obviously, weights being shifted. But then again, as I said, like food wise, again, it was maybe 2 weeks until it was at like an all-time high, and then it's just a case of keep pushing. But the main goal is always just to get the calories straight back up. I don't, it's one of the things, like, I've not really, it's not as if that I've got anything against doing things obviously slowly and stuff like that. I know like that might work for other people and they might get lots and lots of benefits out of it, then fair enough. But like, I just don't like fucking about, and it's just a case of I need to get my food in ass up, and I want to get back to normal. I want to get back to what I know that like my body can respond pretty decently to.
Yeah.
And over like the past contest preps that I've done, at the very end, like obviously 2 of them have landed in America, and 1 of them I've stopped at the Britain.
Yeah.
So even like all of them, it's been straight away, get the food in, and keep that up throughout the off season. As I said, I don't do much else. So, and I believe I'm lucky enough to be able to still have the appetite. Like right now, I've still got the appetite as if I came off stage.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like I'm constantly needing food, kind of thing. As terrible as it sounds, but
yeah, no, I think it helps that you do, or over recent years you've done back-to-back shows, like back-to-back years of competing, because I could say the same for like, you know, if you were to give me a 6-month phase or 5-6 month phase between off season and then prep, I think my appetite would be perfect throughout. I think when, you know, you might not find any issue, like for example, Jack, you know, Mr. Thorburn finds no issue with his appetite, and he's, you know, 2.5 years into the off season, but you know, I've had quite a few issues over the last couple of months with appetite being up and down. Like it's better, it's good now, but there's been some bigger blocks of time where I've been like, fuck, okay, this is getting a little tough. And I think sometimes it's not the amount of food or the, you know, the requirement of calories. It's more so just the time having to spend eating that, you know. Instead of 6 months, it's like a couple of years eating in a decent surplus. But the other question I had about off-season eating is like, do you find that your food has to be progressive? Do you find that you have a point at which, okay, you've gained a certain amount of weight, and then do you have to add in more? Or do you find that you know, basically bump up your calories post-show and you find an amount that you just sort of sit on and you don't really change it? What sort of happens with your off-season food?
Well, through like post-show, that was the case. It was like the calories that I was sitting on, the amount of food that I was eating, I was gaining. But it did get to a certain point. I believe I reached 94. I think it was like 94.5 kilo. And I was sitting like, I must have been sitting on that for like 2 weeks. And that was the reason I left it for like a full week, kind of seeing maybe if I would wake up the next day and like everything was staying the same, to see if I would maybe bump up like an extra pound or something, but stayed the same. The second week again stayed the same, and then I literally pushed the calories again, so I pushed them up as much as, and then within, I think it was like a 3-day window or something like that, there was 2 pounds added on. And I thought, well, maybe it's just a bit of like fluctuation. It might not be anything. I might just go back down to 94.5. But from that time, they stayed, and again I became heavier again. So it was like, I believe if it gets to a point where that happens again, I'm not going to wait like 2 weeks to see if that happens again. I'm just going to go straight away and up the calories, and that's it.
Yeah, I think that makes sense for you for sure, because, you know, you're working with fairly short proximities in the off season. Like you can't afford to waste a week, really.
Yeah.
And you know, you make big changes, man. Like you make huge changes in the time that you have. And that just shows what you can do in a relatively short off season. I know for some people it is a decent off season, but you know, in standard terms, in natural bodybuilding terms, it's relatively short to have time off, which is just, you know, the 6 months or 5 months in between years of competition. The other question I had is like, when you transition from an off season diet into a pre-contest diet, I know that to get the amount of food in that you have to eat at the moment, there is a lot of sort of like added extras, so to speak, you know, like boxes of cereal bars, boxes of Squares bars and things like that. What is your approach when you start a pre-contest diet? Do you immediately go down to just whole foods straight away? Like, so for example, your potatoes, your chicken, things like that. Or do you keep some of those things in and gradually reduce them? What's your approach?
To be honest, I would just get them cut straight away. Like, again, it's a problem that I don't have is, like, it's fine, fair enough, keeping them in the off season, but when it comes down to like a contest prep, especially like if food's changed and things like that, which obviously it will, I don't have I don't have a problem just being like, right, okay, that's it. This is going to be like, say for instance, this is going to be my last packet of square bars for, I don't know, numerous amount of weeks, months.
Yeah.
So it's like they're cut and that's it kind of thing. I could see it being good, maybe tapering them down a bit and things like that. Obviously, maybe pre-prep, but once prep started, I think that's it. There's like a flick of the switch where it's like, right, they aren't going to be in, do you know what I mean? So like, once that date's set, that say for instance, I'm going to start prepping, they get cut.
Yeah, for sure. I think
Yeah.
that makes sense. I think that when you transition into something as serious as a contest prep, you almost want the rigidity of the daily foods remaining very similar. I think when you have the bits added in, and then sometimes you have them, sometimes you don't, it can definitely affect your look a little more as well. So, and I think like mentally also, like I think sometimes the shit food, or not the shit food, but the additional extras make you want more of them when you have them in. And I know that we find, like for us, we're sort of like, when it comes to contest prep, it's like an all or nothing kind of approach. So you want to do the approach that kind of makes the most sense in terms of optimality, and that's probably eating, the bro style foods kind of thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree with that for sure. When it comes to contest prep dieting, obviously I know a little bit about how we work together. And I know that it was a little hard towards the end in terms of the calories you had to go down to, because of the prep that we had. It wasn't probably the most optimal prep that you've ever had, for sure. It was a very difficult one. But when it comes to like your most successful prep, which was probably last year, it was probably your best ever. What did the structure look like in terms of foods? I know you worked with Vicky and Guy. So what was sort of the overall, or the overarching structure to your contest prep diet?
Well, basically, like, it was going from my off season to my contest prep. It was a huge jump. Like, I think it was even in the first week of the transition from the foods that I was eating to obviously the foods that I went to. Like, again, it wasn't as if that I had the problem changing or anything like that. It was just getting used to the foods, because it changed up to basically I was having, like, obviously I was still having my oats in, which was like fantastic, but I was switching up from things like rice and stuff like that, carb sources like that, to just basically sweet potato and white potato.
Sure.
So the white potato I didn't really have a problem with, because I know what it's like, but sweet potato, I'd never ate it in my whole entire life. I'd never even dreamt of eating sweet potato, and getting that introduced for, I don't even know what it would have been, I think 4 meals of the day. It was something like that. Yeah, that was a big change. And I got, like, obviously the guys up the road and that told me to invest in an air fryer and things like that. And trust me, like, that was the biggest game changer of my whole entire life, was the air fryer. But
yeah, I know.
it took me, I think, 2 to 3 weeks of, like, beginning prep to basically start getting used to the kind of the sweet potato taste and that.
Sure.
But by the end of prep, it was, I could eat it cold and soggy, and it was so weird. But yeah, but even at that, like, sweet potato and white potato and that, they're all kept in throughout my off season, so I'm not going through a point where if I'm not eating them, it'll be really hard to get back into eating them.
Yeah, sure.
If you get me? Because I don't want to go through that bit again where, oh shit, I need to go through this taste again. I need to get used to this texture and that. Do you know what I mean? So I've just kept them in.
Sure.
Definitely.
And did you work, so when it comes to like the potato and things like that, did you work off just a meal plan? Were you given a meal plan weekly and changes were made and things like that? Yeah.
Pretty much. So it was like I never, basically, obviously it was written down and I just had to eat it, and that was it. I just had to get on with it. So it was like I never questioned anything. I just kind of got on with it, because I used to get, like, lots and lots and lots of questions, like, through Instagram, or what's your macros, how many calories are you on, and things like that. And like it got to a point where it was just like copy and paste answers. I don't have a clue, and I'm not going to ask.
Yeah. I think in some circumstances that's good, because you are able to really just switch off as an athlete. Just do what it says on paper, and rather than heading into a gym session thinking, oh, you know, my carbs are this, or my fats are this, or whatever, you're just thinking, I'm following a bodybuilding diet, so I'm going to go and train like a bodybuilder.
Yeah, that's it.
You know, but
I also think that's what helped me progress as well, like throughout my contest prep.
Yeah, I think so, because that mentality is very different to having a set number of calories which you know are low, you know, and I'm pretty sure your calories wouldn't have got anywhere near as low as your 2018? Yeah, 2018 prep. I'm pretty sure they wouldn't have got anywhere near that low. Maybe like on depletion, but but besides that, they wouldn't have done. But yeah, did you have any high days or refeeds in your contest prep, or was it just straight linear macros the whole time, or linear?
Nearer the end, it was like high days and low days and moderate days and that. So the high days started becoming like a treat, and then they would hit me, and it would be like, oh. Even though there was maybe only like 10 grams dropped in like my oats, they 10 grams were like, oh, it was crazy. I remember there was a time where it was leading up to the end, and I do believe it was obviously the high days and the low days, or it was, to be honest, it was depending on what I was training. So obviously,
makes sense.
Your bigger days and that, like, but there was the days that there was like the slightest of drop in like my oats. Felt like when I was pouring the oats into the bowl that was on my low days, I was like, I might as well just put my hand in, or just tip the bowl up into my mouth. Do you know what I mean? I might as well just not waste my time cooking it.
Yeah.
But then on a high day, it was like, whoa, this is like a treat. Yeah. So, but no, it was special.
So, final thing, and I know that you can't share a huge amount of like detail and things like that, because I know Vicky and Guy are very sort of, well, they want to keep their own practices to their clients and things like that. To share a load of things, but what was in sort of like the best way you can describe it as an overall sort of view? What was your peaking approaches like? Did you run the same peaks in terms of the general approach for both your qualifier and the final, or did you try some different things? What was sort of the general approach to those weeks?
Nah, they were pretty much the same.
Okay.
Yeah, sure. From what I can remember, they were pretty much the same.
Sure.
There was nothing really different. Obviously, I'd done the Manchester show, and like that would have been the Northern show. Yeah. So I'd done that one, and within like the 3 weeks, I think it was 3 or 4 weeks till the finals. Really, I needed that time as well. So it wasn't as if really anything needed to change. I just like towards the Britain, I needed that extra 3 weeks of dieting anyway. So along with, we did peak for the Manchester show, and then at the same again, I needed like that extra 3 weeks. So it was straight back on, and then it became obviously the Britain, and the protocols were basically, they were pretty similar.
Yeah. Sure. So another one, actually, how did you manage the whole situation with obviously Kudos being a part of Vicky and Guy's team, and obviously you guys being very, very, close knit with the BNBF, both going to the posing clubs, both supporting their federation very, very well. How did you handle that rivalry? Did you just view it as, okay, cool, we're just both going to try and be our best and see what happens? Or did you have those days where you were thinking about how he was looking, or,
well,
what was your
approach? To be honest, it was weird because the posing clubs that he was at, it was weird the way it felt. The posing clubs he was at, I was never at. The posing clubs I was at, he was never at. So I did see pictures of him. Like, I don't know, maybe 6 weeks out or something like that.
Sure.
But like they weren't like the best angles kind of thing, so I never actually knew what it was. But that was one of the things that I learned from like my 2018 prep and 2017 as well, was just like, don't worry about anybody else kind of thing. And it was like that was one of the biggest things that is, obviously Dave Kay was, it was leading up to the Manchester show, and it was something that like he drilled into my head was, don't worry like about anybody else, let them worry about you.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And something just changed, and it was like you know how easy it is to look on Instagram, look for your opponents or like your competitors, your fellow competitors, and see how they're looking, and instantly shit yourself because they found some sick lighting in a gym and they put a picture up looking shredded and huge. You know what I mean? It's things like that. But I never actually seen Q until the Manchester show when he was doing some of the awards, and obviously even at that I never obviously got to see what he was looking like. But it was not until the Britain that I kind of actually seen him like in the flesh, and then that was really it. But again, it was probably a bit too late to be like, oh shit, do you know what I mean? So
yeah, for sure. I think, I massively agree with you, mate. Not like Dave's advice is obviously golden, and the fact that I think a lot of people, mate, even before they start competing, like even before they do a prep, they don't deem themselves as worthy for a prep because their comparisons are just horrible. Like they're just beating themselves up, and they're like, oh, I can't beat that, I can't beat this. I'm like, mate, you don't even know what you look like shredded.
Yeah.
And I think it does show in your mindset, mate. And when you're training, and even when you're on stage, you can tell that you're very focused on you. And that's the only thing that's sort of concerning you, which is very admirable, especially at your age, because like a lot of youngsters will worry and will think. And I think actually probably in my 2017 prep, there was 2 or 3 times where I'd look at photos of someone else and I'd like message my mate and say, what do you think of them? What do you think of them? And it just really riles your own head. In some circumstances, I think maybe it can make you like, maybe you could see it and you could be like, okay, I'm gonna work harder. I've got to work harder. But when you're already working at max capacity, sometimes that puts you in a bad position because you work harder and you diet off muscle and you look shit. So yeah, I think sticking to the plan and not worrying about other people is key. So great advice.
Definitely.
In terms of, I'm sure this will come up on the questions that I haven't even got yet. But I want to know what the goal is, obviously, for this year. I'm imagining you're getting back on stage. I know that in my mind, I guess there's something you're still very much coming for that you haven't quite got yet. And you've come so close, like too many fucking times. So it is the plan this year to get back on stage. And what would you say is your number one goal of this year?
The British title. Yeah,
for sure. And do you want that to correlate in you going to the Worlds again and potentially vying for like a world title and perhaps doing the open class as well? Because I know that the juniors sometimes doesn't get very well populated. Yeah.
Definitely. So, but it's a case of like, obviously last year was my closest because there was only a point in it, and it was weird because obviously after the British finals there was like lots going on over social media and stuff like that. I was getting loads of messages that I probably didn't want to get, and it was like, obviously it gave me a lot of time to sit and think, right, maybe that should have happened, maybe that shouldn't have happened. But it was just one of the things I had to deal with, and then I went out to the Worlds, and obviously it was good. But no, last year was my 3rd year, and it was my 3rd runner-up spot in the British finals. So I'm glad it's not told me that, right, that you've came second 3 years in a row, you're not going to come first. Do you know what I mean? I'm going to come in this year, and it's like, I'm not going to come in with any different attitude. It's just going to be the exact same, and I know what I want. And
yeah. I think you got a very, very good chance, mate. Are you working with Vicky and Guy again out of interest?
Yeah.
Yeah, good. I think that would be great because obviously they've had a year with you now. They know your body and it can only go better than it did last time. So I think that will be the recipe for success, man. I'm looking forward to seeing it because I'm sure that you've improved in this off season, the small off season, and taking that into an even better prep than last time will definitely have you with more tissue. Do you know whether you've got a bye to the British finals? Do you go straight to the British finals having winning the world?
I believe so with the with the worlds, obviously with the junior class anyway. It would be different, obviously, say for instance, like when I went out as a teen and then I took the teen world title, so basically that would have given me a bye to the Britain as a teen, but then because the year later, with the way that my birthday fell, I was having to do another, like with the way that my birthday fell, I couldn't compete as a teen again.
Yeah.
Just due to the finals and that. So I was going into the junior class, which meant I had to do a junior qualifier first.
Sure.
So I'll need to clarify it with Vicky, but I believe that's the way that it falls. But like as I said, I'll have to just check about that. But
that'd be good though. That'd be good if you did, wouldn't it? Because then you could ultimately just make one show your best show. But then again, sometimes doing the qualifier can help. Like obviously, my plans this year were to obviously compete in the UK FBA, and with that, I think there was the potential that I could have the bye to the finals because I was a previous British and world champion.
Yeah.
And I did discuss it with them and say, what is the situation? But I didn't even want it anyway, because I wanted to do a qualifier, I think, because I'm moving up a category. So if I did get the opportunity, then I'd want to do a qualifier anyway, just to see where I stand, because ultimately, like I've done it once in the open class when I crossed over. But I haven't done it like properly with it being the main goal. So I need to see where I stand for sure. But I think for you, having done, so many shows, things like that, it could potentially be better to just do the finals. But anyway, let's move on to some of these questions.
Cool.
And we'll see where it takes us. So let's go for, what do you do for traps other than your crazy deadlifts? What's your favorite trap?
It's like, this is the thing. I'll train traps whenever I remember to train traps.
Okay.
But like, it's not a huge thing. Like I don't ever feel, I'll include traps in like my shoulder or back sessions, but like lately I've been including shoulders. Like I've just been including traps in my shoulder sessions.
Okay.
And then I like to kind of rotate between doing that and training rear delts in my back sessions. But then again, like I could do that for numerous amount of sessions, then just change it up and come in one night and do shoulders and train rear delts with shoulders, and then do, if I remember, traps with back. But I do strongly believe that from like the heavy deadlifts, heavy bent over rows, things like that have helped improve and like help the growth of like my traps. But again, it's like they've always been there. Do you know what I mean? It's like they've grew since like I was a teen, but when I was a teen, it was always like that was always going to be the most muscular pose.
Yeah. I think you might just have very good genetically good traps, and it's rare. It's quite rare on a natural to see, especially a junior natural, like to see big traps. Like it's probably like the weakest body part on a lot of people. I know for me, like there's no chance in fucking hell that I'm hitting crab most muscular because it just looks shit. So there's few people that can hit that pose and like really, really put it off. And it is one of your strongest poses. So yeah, interesting. But I do agree, like with that in terms of deadlifts. After a deadlift day or even a fucking squat day, I feel like my traps, just from the stability aspect and just like holding that amount of weight you're basically doing like an isometric with how many kilos you're using on a deadlift, your traps and your upper back. So, yeah, cool.
Yeah.
A guy called Sheepy Boy asks, what's your reason behind the reluctance to use science-based training methods and nutrition protocols? bit of a harsh question, because I'm sure you don't. I'm completely reluctant, but anyway, go ahead.
So, like, is he meaning like what? Is he basically asking why I don't do like a kind of push-pull leg split or something like that, or like?
I think what he's asking is like, you know, so the research will suggest that, like, if you look purely at the research, you'll probably see that volume spread across the course of the week in multiple sessions, like lower splits or push pulls, is potentially more favourable for hypertrophy. So,
right. Got you. See, to be honest, I just believe it's like I've never believed that there's been a specific best training program for somebody. Like, fair enough. Frequency is got to play a big part in it, fair enough. But at the end of the day, if you're willing to go in and like properly work, it's really rare to see somebody properly work. And I don't mean like work for like a month kind of thing and then take it easy for like, not even take it easy, but drop the intensity that you've just kept up for a month. Like, keep that fucking intensity up for a year, keep it up for 2 years, keep it up for 3 years. That probably at the end of the day your body's going to be beat up to hell, but fuck, think of the results.
Yeah.
So it's like, I do the famous, you know, the bro split, what everybody wants to call it, or a bodybuilding split, but it's like, the way I look at it is say I'm going in to do chest, like I'm going in to do chest, that is my only that's my only focus. I'm going to like absolutely hammer the life out of it, and it's like, it's a case of coming home, like, and you could move the slightest away, it's just constant like cramp kind of thing, do you know what I mean? And that's like, it's like that little bit of satisfaction because you know you've done some, you know you've done damage kind of thing. And the way I look at it as well is like, my chest's not getting hit for like another 4 or 5 days.
Yeah.
So once it comes to like everything's been hit and then it starts again, like I am still getting a decent bit of frequency in, but at the end of the day, like I don't believe it's down to like the constant like training over and over and over again. I believe it's like the work that I do whenever I go into the gym. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm focused 100% whenever I go in. Like, it's go in, get the work done, get out. But when I'm in and the work that's being done, it's like, I don't know, like it's just, again, it's I don't believe in going in like fucking about kind of thing. I like to go in and know what I'm like, know why I'm in there kind of thing. So it's like I genuinely believe it's down to work ethic. Like, you could do a bro split and get no results, but you could also do a push-pull legs or an upper-lower split and get no results. You know what I mean? So in reality, like, both, any training split, you're going to need to put, like, you're going to need to put hours in, you're going to need to put the time in, and, like, you're properly going to need to put the graft in, like, constantly. You know what I mean? So
yeah, I agree. It's like, it's not what you do, it's how you do it.
yeah.
So yeah, I agree with you on that front, man. Niall asks, plans for the future, and do you see yourself going down the PED route, so performance enhancing drug route?
Like, obviously my plans for the future is I'll be totally open about it. Like, I want to reach Olympia stage, but again, like, right now, the way I look at it is I don't see myself failing as a natural.
Yeah.
So with that, like, I believe if it was a little bit different and maybe I was like, if I was competing and coming like 5th, 6th place every single time, and there was obviously lots of different like variables outside of competing as well, like my off season maybe wasn't going as well, or I maybe wasn't lifting the weights that I lift, then to be honest, you'd probably, like, anybody would think about it a lot earlier. But like, the way I kind of look at it is now is I don't think it's like time for anything like that just yet. And like, people will come back and say like, oh well, you're wasting time, do you know what I mean? But then another way that I look at it is I'm only 21, and I don't see myself being a really shit natural bodybuilder kind of thing.
Right. Yeah.
So it's like, it's one of the questions that I do get asked quite a lot, but again, it's the same answer. And unless I wake up one day and, you know what I mean, it's things have changed, but I can't really see that happening, to be honest.
Yeah, I agree, mate. I don't think there's any reason for you to change the route you're on right now just yet. You have probably a lot more potential to grow as a natural right now, and then you can take a route when it comes to it to get to where you want to be. So yeah, I agree with that massively. So someone asks how to bring up lats. He says that he has a good mind-muscle connection, but his barbell row is weak and he uses strict form. What's your advice to bring up the lats?
He uses strict form.
He uses strict form on the barbell row, and he says it's weak, but he has good mind-muscle connection, and his lats.
That'll be the reason it's weak.
Yeah.
Because the form will be too strict.
Yeah.
That's one of the things with like back, obviously. Back, like as well, lats, for instance, saying lats, right? In reality, unless you're doing like a front lat spread, that's the only time you can see your lats. But fair enough, you're contracting if you can pose, but when you're training, everybody knows you can't see your back.
Yeah.
So fair enough, your mind to muscle connection is good, but are you hitting your back from all angles? Are you hitting your lat from all angles? Personally, like everybody that knows me knows, like my form is, I would never say my form is shit, but my form is not strict. And I believe that that's how my physique has reached where it's reached today, because of like that kind of way. So like obviously nearer the end of my set, my form's going to start slacking, but it's going to help me progress in the way that I want to progress, kind of thing. I believe that if I kept my form really, 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 really strict and never reached the weights that I've reached today, I would be like probably 100 and 150 kilo down in weights that I've been lifting 110% if I was going to clean up the full set for, 10 to 15 reps kind of thing.
Yep.
I would probably be barbell rowing like, I don't know, 100 kilo or something like that if I was going to keep it like that. And it's the same way absolutely everything, but to be honest, I think you need to people over obsess about the perfect form too much, and that's why like you'll see people like a year ago and then you'll see people a year further down the line and nothing will have changed, and they're probably the ones on Instagram bitching that they've got shitty genetics. Do you know what I mean? And it's unfortunately it's the harsh truth. But if you would just kind of go in and maybe not focus too much on that strict form, like fair enough, keep your form good at the start of your set, but understand that once you get to maybe 8-9 reps, it's maybe not going to be as perfect as the first rep. But if you're still moving that weight really good, then I mean, I don't see why there can't be any improvements made. But at the same time, then it comes to outside the gym. Are you eating enough to grow? Are you eating enough to put on? There's loads of different things, but everybody that knows me is like, oh, his form's fucking shit. He's not going to grow off that form. But who knows? Like,
yeah, I think it works, man. I think you're very right in saying that, especially on things like rows, there's like a balance between excessive momentum and form going out the window versus a little bit of momentum to actually basically get more reps with handling that load and still being able to get your elbows finishing the right position, still being able to get a good stretch, but using a little bit of like your hip musculature and perhaps your erectors and things like that to just get it from A to B. You see some of the best backs in the world do that. So there's not many backs in the world that do strict pendlay rows with 100 kilos, So yeah, I agree with you on that front, man. Another sort of controversial question. Will asks, do you think that extremely heavy pulling can ruin longevity in bodybuilding?
that's a hard one, because like, are you going to lift light and have in your head that, right, I'm not going to make the best improvements that I could make, but 15 years down the line, I'm going to still be healthy? You know what I mean? This is the worst thing ever, because nobody knows what's going to happen tomorrow. Nobody knows what's going to happen next week.
Yeah.
So utilize this time right now and just do everything heavy. You know what I mean? Make the most out. If you're going down the bodybuilding route and you're wanting to be competitive, you want to go on stage with a physique, you don't want to go on stage like it's bodybuilding. It's like, it's another thing as well. Like, I would always want to go on stage looking muscular. If I wasn't going to look muscular, I probably wouldn't go on stage, kind of thing. And to me, going on stage looking muscular is like, there's more chance of you being looking like a bodybuilder, kind of thing. You know what I mean? People like the idea of competing, but they don't like the idea of growing. And again, don't like the idea of the kind of the heavyweight scenario and stuff like that. But I mean, fine, fair enough. If you are lucky enough and you're going to live another 50 years, then just deal with the consequences. But if you're true to yourself and that's really what you want, then yeah, go for it. But like, I mean, I know myself, like, I don't live it as if like I'm going to see another daft amount of years, because the amount of rubbish that goes on these days, you don't know what's really around the corner. So I would always like utilize my time to the absolute most. That's why I believe that I put so much into whatever I do.
Yeah,
it's just a case of, you know, you want to, and as terrible as it sounds, you want to end on a good note. Do you know what I mean? You don't want to end on like, oh shit, I could have, I could have, don't know, stacked that pull down machine the other day, but I kept it on like plate 2 because I'm thinking 20 years time I still want to, you know, be good and healthy, and you know, I mean, everybody's different, of course, but it's really just the way that it's like, it's up here. I don't know, that's really how it is, but yeah.
No, again, agree with you, dude. I think that when we're looking at like the long-term effects of bodybuilding, we know that, you know, we're probably not going to be super duper healthy at 35, 40 by lifting these poundages. And even something that the Giant said on one of the UK Pro Muscle podcasts, he said that, you know, like, he just accepts that every day he's going to be in some sort of pain. And he realizes that that's part and parcel of bodybuilding, and that bodybuilding is like, it's got to sell by date. At some point, you're going to not probably bodybuild anymore. And, you know, whilst you bodybuild, it's probably, you know, for us at least, we want to make the most of it and like enjoy it the way we want to enjoy it. So
definitely,
I don't think you need to think about too much in the future. Like, if you're constantly getting really fucked up by your heavy pulling and you like really injured, then it's probably not just the heavy pulling. It's just, you know, there's
got to be something else down to that.
Yeah,
definitely.
Sure. Charlie asks, could you still train without the heavy music and the drops?
If that was the case, I'd be training to something like Radio 1, and I would probably look like, I don't know, a Radio 1 producer and not a bodybuilder. Like,
the answer is no.
No chance.
Yeah, I think it makes a huge difference, doesn't it? It makes a huge
definitely 100%. 100%. It's like especially the ones that, you know, like, everybody's always got like something that you can listen to for a top end set.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And sometimes it's maybe not the nicest of music and that, but it's sometimes that's like, say the drops like 1 minute 30 in or something, you're always going to wait to that 1 minute 30 before you lift that weight. The answer is no chance. It's got to be done.
Robert asks, you know Robert, he's like UK FBA team British champion. He asks, will you ever take a season off, or do you plan on competing every year for the foreseeable future?
Yeah, I would look at it as competing. Yeah, like continue competing most seasons. Definitely. It would have to come to a point where I knew that I needed to really take like 1 or 2 years off. But no, I think it's going to be a seasonal thing.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, so
Definitely.
Is this year your last year as a junior?
Yeah. Because like with the way that my birthday falls on that next year, as I missed the cut-off date, so this will be my last competitive season as junior.
Okay. Yeah, well that makes sense. I think, you know, perhaps after that you might have to take 1 year off, but you know, you've already won an overall, so you're pretty damn close to the level of musculature you'd have to have as an open, but what route you take with it. But anyway, mate, I think that's pretty much most of the good questions. I'm pretty sure we've just come up to just over an hour anyway, so I'll let you crack on with the rest of your day. But thank you very much for obviously coming on, mate. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me on.
For any of the listeners that basically want to know more about you and give you a follow, like where are you most active online?
Instagram, like 24 hours of the day. It's like the main thing. It's just at Khifee West _, so it's pretty easy enough. Most of my stuff's on there. I do like a little bit of YouTube here and there and stuff like that, but the most of the time it's the old Instagram.
Good.
Definitely.
Awesome. All right, man. Well, thank you very much. It's been very insightful as always. And I wish you the best of luck this year. I'm sure we'll chat amongst the season and bump into each other. But
definitely, you too. You're competing as well, yeah.
Yeah. It's gonna be cool, man. It's gonna be interesting. Yeah, there's a lot of people competing that I can't wait to see on stage. So it's gonna be good. So yes, we'll wrap it up here, guys. Thanks for listening, and we will chat in the next episode. See you in a bit.